My guest, Mitzi Szereto, writes true crime books, and tonight she's going to come on and tell us about them. See you in about 5 minutes. Grab your popcorn and snacks. Find a comfy spot, take a seat or lie down, and let me transport you to a place of fantasy, ghost stories, ancient legends, odd creatures, alien encounters, and other magical topics. You may even decide to join the conversation. From faraway lands to your own backyard, with a small dash of pixie dust. Turn out the lights and open your minds. The journey is about to begin. Good evening, everybody. How's everybody doing? It's Friday. I think I heard you say we're doing okay, right? Because it is Friday. Everybody gets get 2 days off from working, do what you want, go be lazy in the pool. It's still hot here. All I just complain about Sacramento and the heat. Every summer. 102 today. Every summer. Anyway, for those people that have pools, that's pretty cool. You know, I used to have a pool back in the old days. Anyway, my name is Charlotte. I'm going to be your host for the next hour. I am also the owner of the California Haunts paranormal investigation team based out of Sacramento, California. We're 45 strong up and down the state of California, which means I have people everywhere. And which that also means that if you do have a paranormal issue and you need help, we can get to you. We may be 2-3 counties away, but we can still get to you. Okay? So if you need to contact us, do that at californiahaunts.org or californiahauntsradio.com, or on Facebook. You can find California Haunts Paranormal Investigation Team. See, that was easy. Tonight's guest is an old friend, been on the show before, and this takes me back to me being a crime courts reporter. I did that for 5 years. That was my gig. You know, newspaper reporters tend to specialize in stuff, and for me, it was crime and courts. Even though later on I became a general assignment reporter where I covered a little bit of everything, sports and everything. But really, my heart was with the crime and courts. And so my guest tonight, Mitzi Szereto, likes to write true crime stories. And she's got a new book coming out, and she also has a book out right now that's pretty cool. So I'm going to bring her on, and she can tell you a little bit about herself and how somebody gets into writing crime stories. She's written a whole lot of these books, and they're all really good. So let's bring her on. Hello.
Hi.
Haven't seen you in a while.
Yeah, I think it was around we were still in the winter time. Now we're sweltering in the summertime.
Now I'm dying of heat stroke. I like the winter. Even though it was cold. I said, I can't win. I complain when it's cold. I complain when it's hot. But
yeah, I think we've kind of reached a bit of an overkill right now. Overkill, that's a good word for our subject for the evening.
Yeah. So how are you doing?
Oh, I'm doing fine. I mean, you know me, I'm always just busy and working all the time. As you know, I've got a new book coming out and I delivered another one, and I'm still kind of keeping the ball in the air with the one that's currently out. So, you know, no rest for the wicked. So no time to be wicked.
You write on so many, topics about these crimes and stuff. Where do you find them? Do people come to you with them, or how do you get all this put together?
Well, for my series, the best new true crime stories, I come up with an idea for each book, a specific theme, and then I just basically get the word out wherever I can get the word out, so writers find out that I'm working on a book and this is the theme, and you know, I have them pitch me ideas. You know, I kind of will give a go ahead if I think an idea sounds promising. That's not an acceptance, but it's kind of like a step up the ladder that hey, this could work. It fulfills the requirement, and then we just go from there. So I mean, it's really fun coming up with all these different themes for each book. I don't know when I'll ever stop. I mean, there's just so many different ideas that you could kind of you know, have each volume, and you know, crime never ends, so we don't run out of material.
There's so much crime out there. There's a lot to choose from.
It just doesn't end.
No, it doesn't. Now, tell me, okay, well, once they pitch you the story, then do they write it for you, and then you do the editing, or and you do the cross-checking on it, or how's that work?
Oh, well, yeah, there's a lot of work involved. You know, they'll, like I said, they'll give them the go ahead that it works. This could work, and then they do the story, send it to me, and then I start the editing. Sometimes I might have some suggestions, perhaps maybe something they could explore a little, you know, a bit more. And like I said, you know, I definitely get my hands dirty with the editing. And then when that's all finished and everybody's signed off on everything, you know, the writer says, yeah, this is fine and whatever, and everything's fixed to how it should be fixed, then the fact checking starts. That's like the really the worst part of the job. I mean, obviously the writers, do fact checking, but sometimes you find things that are still they were missed, or if things are published or reported on, and then you could get discrepancies actually even in the so-called facts.
Right.
So we try to be as accurate as we possibly can. Um, there's only so much you can do, but obviously people are reading true crime and they expect to read something that's true.
Right.
And
Right.
I feel that there's a heavy burden on everyone to make that happen.
Absolutely. Now you have a book out right now.
Yeah, the one we chatted about in the winter was the Partners in Crime book. But I've actually got the next one coming out in a matter of weeks.
Hmm.
So.
Yeah, we got back-to-back books coming out. Tell me about Partners in Crime.
Well, Partners in Crime is exactly what it says on the tin. It's about criminal couples, people who are involved in a relationship and they end up committing crimes together. They might be perhaps one particular individual might be the ringleader. It could be both people that are pretty much gung ho to commit these crimes. It's got a really diverse group of stories in there. I mean, we've got and of course, as you know, the stories are very international, so we hit a lot of corners of the globe. Same with my writers. I mean, they're from all corners of the globe as well.
Every time I see one of those Lifetime crime movies, I think of you.
I'm not sure how I feel about that. I was just at my friend's for a couple of days, and the Lifetime channel downstairs is always on because I think the dogs watch it. And I was just commenting that every single film seems the same. All the female actresses seem interchangeable. I mean, if they came and hit me with a baseball bat, I wouldn't remember them because it's like the same exact thing again and again and again. And one of my friends calls it the man hating channel.
I got hooked into those because there's a Lifetime crime channel. I got hooked into that for a while there. Where that's all I watched. But then they started to repeat the same movies over and over. But I mean, it gets addictive. It's like reading.
Yeah.
I'm not cutting down on crime books because I love reading like your type of book, and different books like that. Though your books are addictive.
Yeah, well, I'm glad they're addictive in a good way.
They are
I,
addictive. I'm reading right
yeah, I
now.
mean,
Go ahead.
that's the thing. I mean, generally, I think I've got a nice base of readers where they pretty much get every volume because they're not the same. People think, well, oh, it's another one of these books. So what? I read the last one, but it's totally, they're all totally different. You're never going to get a rehash or a regurgitation of what was in the previous one. So it's a fresh book. I mean, it's just, but
Right.
it's all true crime. I mean, and that's the thing, you don't want to have everything be the same. It's the same when I pick the stories. I have to kind of really see what bounces off each other. I don't want to have a bunch of stuff that's going to be too repetitive as far as maybe the types of crime or the characters who commit these crimes. I want it to be really diverse and a lot of variety to keep the reader interested.
I,
That's my goal.
well, you've written so many of these books. How do you not
Yeah.
do similar repeats?
Sorry.
You've written so many of these books. Yeah, it must be difficult to go through there and not do similar kind of stories, and in other books.
Well, that's why I work so hard to cast a wide net to get in all kinds of writers. I mean, I do have regulars, people who have appeared in more than one volume, sometimes several volumes, and that's fine because they also do things that are totally different and not doing the exact same thing all the time. But it's always fun to get a good mix of people and people maybe who I've never worked with before. It always amazes me how they find me. I mean, they seem to just come out of nowhere, and I'm like, how in the world did you find this call for submission? But that's the fun part. It's really kind of like I feel like I'm casting a film in a way,
Okay.
if that makes sense.
Yeah, it makes a lot of sense. It makes a lot of sense. Now tell me, let's go into Partners in Crime a little bit. When I think of Partners in Crime, I think of people like Bonnie and Clyde. People like that. But out of all the stories in that book, which one stands out to you the most?
Oh, yeah, you're kind of asking me to pick a favorite now. That's not fair. um, God, I don't know. My brain is like in another book right now, and you asked me about this one. I like the one about the World War II spies. It's an American couple who goes to the UK and they end up spying for the Russians, and it's set during the Cold War. And one reason I really like that story is one of my favorite ever television series is The Americans with Matthew Rhys, who's a wonderful actor. I've never seen anything he's in that I didn't like. And I just love that series so much. And this particular story just sort of like, I felt like it was like The Americans all over again, kind of the similar story where this couple was spying, but it wasn't for sinister reasons, but it was to try to create some equilibrium so we didn't have too much power in one country, and that's sort of how this story is as well, as was the Americans television series, which was, sort of that same theme. What other stories did I like? I like mine.
Okay. Let's hear it.
Is that fair to say? Mine was an interesting one about a couple in London. It was a Hungarian woman and her British husband, who was a constable for the London Metropolitan Police. And essentially, they're running a bordello out of in a very posh part of London, out of a flat. And they were like importing women from Hungary, kind of painting this wonderful, glamorous idea that work in London and all, blah blah blah. Well, yeah, I mean, they knew what they were getting into, but it was just, they were just so exploited, and this couple was just so uh they honestly were not the nicest people, which I suppose really they're pimps. No matter what you want to say about them, they're still pimps, and they're not pimps don't have a great reputation. So I really enjoyed doing that story and digging into it, and kind of getting into the heads of these women who were coming over to London thinking maybe this is a new start for them, and some of them needed to help family back home financially, and this was kind of the only thing they could do, since the same job in Hungary wasn't paying as well as it would pay in London. But they got a big surprise when they came to London, because they didn't do that well financially either, thanks to this couple.
So, I mean, there's a lot of that goes around now. I mean, that's going on right now, even here in the United States.
Oh yeah,
There's been
yeah.
there's that program. I don't know if it's still on, but there's a program about all that too. So what type of people were they catering to? Let's put it that way.
Well, I mean, the escort business in London's pretty big. I mean, you laugh about, the telephone kiosk. People don't go in the phone kiosk to make a phone call. I mean, the phone kiosk is basically a bunch of cards from escorts. I mean, this is fact. So they were advertising online, and some of the spelling was atrocious. I mean, I mean, laughable, because these ads that they were putting out. But businessmen, married men, of course. I mean, there was references in the story about how some of the people who were living in this block of flats would see these rather sleazy guys putting their wedding rings back on after they left. So it was pretty much it wasn't as I said, it was being run out of this really posh block of flats in Kensington, or Chelsea rather, and they were obviously thinking they were getting an upmarket clientele, and I suppose they were. I mean, better than you would get, walking the streets. But
yeah. Wow. So obviously they got caught, right? Or there wouldn't be a story about them.
Yeah, well, I mean, it is sex trafficking, and sex trafficking is illegal, and that's where that's how they got caught. I mean, they were bringing women in from another country for sex work, and that's just that's not legal in the UK.
That's crazy.
But I mean, yeah, this couple was like, just spending money left and right. I mean, they weren't exactly subtle about it. And the fact that the husband was, a special constable with the Met, that's a bit dodgy, isn't it?
Yeah. Jeez.
Yeah.
Oh, but he would have figured it. I'm sure that's what he figured. Since he was a special constable, he knew about the law, and he could figure out ways around it, until he got caught.
You would think.
Yeah.
I mean, they managed to keep going for quite a while before, the proverbial hit the fan. So,
That's
they accumulated quite a lot of money.
that's interesting. That's really interesting. Now your new book that's going to be coming out. I even have that. Look at that. So I'm on the stick today. Watch, watch, watch. There we go.
Yeah, you got it there. I was going to flash the book, but you beat me
See
to
that? I
it.
beat you to it. So tell me about this book.
Okay. Well, again, it's pretty self-explanatory. They're unsolved crimes and mysteries. And this is just such a popular theme in true crime because, we just, it's when you get everything and when you can't wrap up something and you leave all these loose ends, I suppose it appeals to that sort of innate detective in us that you kind of want to think, well, who did it, or how we try to find a solution for it. And as of the publication, obviously, the stories in this book do not have a solution or someone who's been caught for these crimes. But again, it's an international collection, and it spans a broad time frame. We've got more contemporary stories. We've got some that are a bit more historical. And the challenge being with a historical story, you sort of think, you have to put it to bed, because how are you ever going to possibly solve these cases? But as sometimes it happens. Sometimes someone might have a deathbed confession, or something might be found, a document of some sort. So, but this was a really fun one to do. I have some authors who I've worked with before, and there's some new people in this as well. And we've got, obviously, we've got unsolved murders, but we have other crimes as well. We have, I suppose you could call white collar crimes and whatnot. But yeah, it's really all over the place. I mean, I'm pretty excited about it. I don't know. Do you have a specific, anything specific you wanted to ask me as far as stories?
Yes. Which one? Same question as the other book. Which one stood out the most to you? Which story?
Whoa, boy. Gosh, there's some real heavy hitters in this book. I mean, the first story that I opened the book with is called 25 Years Later. This AT lesbian double murder still haunts me. And it's about the unsolved murder of two women in the Shenandoah National Park area when they went hiking and camping out. And what's I think particularly hard hitting about the story is that it's not just, we're not just told the story, but the writer Lindsay Danis is actually in the story because she's an avid hiker as well, and she has been here, and several times she has been here, so we kind of see through her eyes what it was like for these women, and the kind of fear that they felt as women, as women who had the nerve to go hiking, and as lesbian women who had the nerve to go hiking. So it's you when you read it, I mean, I could just feel the fear in the story, and I think the writer has really brought that to the fore, that anyone reading this could really identify with what it was like for this couple who was just minding their own business, enjoying nature, and that didn't live through it.
Do you see like working on all these books that you do? Do you see a common thread with some of these murders?
Well, women are often the victims, as this is just the society we live in, the world we live in, and that they're often disposable. There's another story in this book about missing and murdered Indigenous women in the Alberta area, in Edmonton and outside Edmonton, Alberta. And I'm not sure if you are familiar with it, but I mean, this is a pretty big epidemic that isn't getting the kind of coverage it should get. It's a problem in Canada. It's a problem in the United States. And in this particular story, by one of my return contributors, Janelle Camo. Again, it's that these women were dismissed, not just because they were Indigenous, but because a lot of these women, they didn't have money, they were struggling, they were just trying to survive, and a lot of them, they were working as sex workers. So that alone sort of diminished them as a priority in the eyes of law enforcement. And then again, and then substance abuse issues, you bring that in as well, and they diminish even further in importance as far as getting these crimes solved. For instance, just to give you an example, when I was fact checking and I was checking back and forth with Chanel about how come, we don't have a specific date of this or a specific date of that. A lot of it was down to sloppy police work. The cops just couldn't be bothered. And I mean, that's terrible, because it's like prioritizing who in this world is more important, or somebody's murder is more important or less important. And it's, I don't know, but so that's another real heavy hitter in the book.
Well, you made a point about that, because while you were talking about it, I was thinking of Dennis Rader, and and I'm not saying that they diminished looking for who he killed, but a few of the women he killed were ladies of the night that he had picked up, and it took so long to get him. So, I agree with you. I don't think they put, when it involves a prostitute or someone like that, they do not put the emphasis on it, because, they're asking for it because they're out in the car, they're out soliciting and all this. But, nobody asked to be killed.
Yeah. Well, it's that whole thing in general. I mean, like for women and girls, it's like, well, if you were drinking, it's somehow, well, if that happened to you, what did you expect? Or if you went out in the evening with either on your own or with friends, if something happens to you, it's like, well, what did you expect? And we never say this to men, and why is that?
Right. Or if you go to a bar, you go to the bar with a bunch of friends, meet some guy. Oh, go ahead and go home. He's going to take me home. Somebody you hardly know. You know. Yeah, I agree with you. I agree with you 100%. Some of
Yeah.
these stories are really spooky. Like I said, Dennis Rader is a good example of that. But there are other stories of girls. Like even you look at Ted Bundy, and here he was picking up people at state parks and stuff
Yeah.
and taking them.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't know. Women have to. And I hate to say it this way, because it's a bad thing that women keep getting killed and stuff. But women also have to be a little smarter. People should be a little smarter when they're out alone, or a public place like that.
Well, it's this is the society we live in, and unfortunately, you do have to be on your guard, and you just can't let your guard down, because you don't know who anyone is or who's lurking around, and you know, um, but again, it's this whole idea of just not prioritizing a death or a missing person. That's
Right.
the sad thing. There's another story in the book too about a Swedish au pair who comes to Boston to look after a well-off family's kids. And she is found, basically half of her is found in a dumpster.
Wow.
And again, she just didn't get a lot of attention with this murder because she was a foreigner.
Sure.
So it wasn't like a big priority for this, Swedish girl from a village who came over to look after someone's kid. It was just nobody was knocking themselves out about it, and I don't know.
It's sad. It is
Yeah.
really sad. Let me ask you this, because I know somebody in my chat room is going to ask. You wrote this book about unsolved murders, unsolved crimes. Have you heard of the missing 911 stuff, where people are going missing in state parks and all that's going on?
Well, I know it happens. I mean,
Right.
I mean, I've sort of curtailed things that I was doing before as well, not just about going missing, but just because of incidents with even like your catalytic converter disappearing off the car in a parking lot. So it's like you start rethinking about things and whatnot. But I think the state park thing is not anything new. I mean, that's what Ted Bundy, as we mentioned earlier, that's what he was up to.
I mean, it's just so easy for somebody, and I know people try to say, well, I wonder what's happening to these missing people and stuff, but it's so easy because these parks. I mean, if you look at Northern California or even Wisconsin, there are so many woods out there where somebody
Yeah.
can hide. You know what I mean? So it'd be so easy, and I'm not saying it because I'm going to do it. No. People don't don't think I don't really, to where you can snatch somebody and just disappear.
Oh yeah, I mean that's always something that you're thinking of unless you're in a really busy area. But then again, we got the whole back to Ted Bundy when he was like it was in the parking lot over by was it Lake Sammamish in
Yeah,
Puget
yeah,
Sound,
sure.
and like he just sort of put on his crutch or whatever he was doing, like, oh, can you help me with this thing? And I mean, so here was a public place. It wasn't like they were off in the woods where no one was around. So I don't know.
Toughie. It's a toughie.
Just don't leave the house.
Just stay home. Don't talk to anybody, like my dad said.
Don't go anywhere. Don't leave the house. Don't speak to anyone.
Don't speak to
I
anybody.
mean,
Just go into your
it's
thing
getting
now.
to that point. You'd be doing that in COVID,
Well, it is now, and it seems like, and I don't know. It just seems like you hear more and more of these stories. Maybe it's just because there's better news. I don't know if there's better news media coverage on them or what, but I think you're hearing more and more of these stories. A book like yours is important because people can read about that. The book
Yeah.
teaches lessons, even though it's about these sad things that happen to these people. It does teach a lesson of what not to do. It's sad.
Well, yeah, I think so too. I mean, I kind of hope that with these books that some of the stories might provoke thought, not just about your own well-being and your own safety, your own personal safety, but even about perhaps where you live, the kind of laws that we have, the lack of protection that we have in many regards. I mean, like even like of the whole gun issue. For instance, other countries get mass shootings and they nip it in the bud. I'm sorry, you don't have guns everywhere, but the United States does this like it's a sport.
Mm-hmm.
Every single day there's a mass shooting, but nobody's going to ever do anything about the guns because the politicians are in bed with the NRA, and
Yeah,
that's the truth.
absolutely.
But you hope that maybe people will read this, like about, for instance, in my small towns book about the mass shooting in Tasmania. Like 5 minutes later, the government says, we're not going to allow anybody to just running around with these guns. Same thing with when it happened in Scotland with the school shooting. Um,
Right.
you kind of hope maybe someone might think a little bit and go, hey, yeah, why is it not, the same here?
Right. Absolutely. And like you with your books, when I was when I was working the crime beat for the newspaper, I felt like you did with the articles I was writing. As horrible as they were, and the murders that occurred and the crimes that occurred, I thought if I could write it clearly enough and succinctly enough so people could understand what led up to this and why it happened, maybe I'll help somebody somewhere along the line. I'll save a life or help somebody.
Well, yeah, exactly. And I think that's one argument that is being tossed around a lot as far as why true crime is so popular and why it's so popular with women. And that's one thing that they're saying is that perhaps it's a tool.
Yeah.
Women are reading these stories and perhaps in a way kind of getting a bit more enlightened about themselves and perhaps what they can try to do. Nothing's guaranteed. You could be as careful as you want, and sometimes you just have a huge big piece of bad luck fall on you.
Mm-hmm.
But if you can try to prevent things, that's about all we can do. So yeah, absolutely, I think that's definitely the case, that it's an educational tool as well. And and also the whole psychological thing, we kind of like getting into people's heads, these
Mm-hmm.
horrible people, and what makes them tick, and that's just something that fascinates us. And probably that's a big reason people read true crime and write true crime. I mean, it is for me anyway.
Well, I remember the magazines. Remember the magazines? I don't even know if they have. I haven't seen those like up on the rack, like where you can really see them anymore. But remember those magazines? It was always some guy in a trench coat with a gun pointed at some gal. All those true crime mags. I remember reading them as a kid.
Well, they still have true crime magazines in the UK. But I don't know. It doesn't. I don't know how long we're going to have magazines anymore. But I know there's some there. And yeah, they're a little bit sensationalist. And that's another thing is I try to keep a real big distance between sensationalism and what I do, because these are real people. These are real cases. People's lives have been affected. People's lives have ended.
Mm-hmm.
And even if it happened 100 years ago or it happened a year ago,
Right.
I, I think being sensitive to that and not, exploiting the story or I would hate for someone to read anything that's in my book and be really hurt by it or upset by it, if they were perhaps involved in the case or related to someone. I mean, of course, nobody probably wants things rehashed all the time,
Right.
but at least if you do it in a sensitive way, hopefully that's what I've achieved. And I mean, with the Unsolved Crimes and Mysteries book too, if some of these cases are still fairly recent, you never know.
Right.
Someone might read it and maybe they know something. I don't know. It could happen.
Well, the other thing I like about your books, and I pointed that out last night when I teased the show, was that you hear about people like Dennis Rader, you hear about people like Ted Bundy, but with your books, you're not getting those huge stories. You're getting the ones that people don't really hear about, and you're bringing them out, and that's what's nice about it.
Well, that is a challenge because, true crime is just so popular right now. I mean, God, there's so many podcasts, there's so many television series, there's just, films. And it's like, well, how do I find some content that hasn't been done to death already? And sometimes, I'll have content that maybe the case is familiar to people, but I tell the writers when they want to go off and write about it, and I say, look, you've got a big burden on you because this is a well-known case. So you need to come up with something that is going to make it interesting to people who already know about the case. And that's not an easy task. So obviously I do try to encourage more stories that aren't so known, kind of dig out something. And because they're so international, that's, I think, one way to kind of get out of it. Because, for instance, American readers probably don't know a lot of these non-US stories, especially some that are pretty far afield. We're not even talking, say, Britain, but maybe even farther afield, that Japan or Italy or I mean, just places that they're just not going to know these crime stories, these crime cases. And that's the whole fun of it. Because I get people telling me all the time that what's so different about the Best New True Crime Stories series is it's so global in its approach and in its content. And I think globally. So I mean, that's perfectly natural to me. So when I have people saying they're surprised by that, I'm surprised they're surprised.
Now, when you started reading these and editing them, and I know when I used to write them, depending on the topic, and who was involved, I used to really get into these things when I was writing them. I mean, I actually felt for the people, and you're not supposed to do that, but you tend to feel for the victims, you really do. And
well, I think that's important too. I mean, when you're writing true crime, it's not just about writing about the murderer, but it's the people he or she or they murdered that also should get some airplay. I mean, these are real people, and a lot of the stories that are in my books do have a focus on the victims. Sometimes the victim almost overshadows the actual perpetrator, depending on that particular writer's approach. And I mean, we can't forget the victims in all this. And I think in the past, maybe we did, but I think that's changing more and more, hopefully.
mm-hmm, mm-hmm. Yeah, and I would love to I would love to do a true crime novel at some point or something like that. In fact, I have a story that I'm going to sit down and talk to you about a story after this, because I have a story of something I covered that I think is a rather interesting story that you might like.
I think you may have mentioned that to me before, but I'll tell you honestly, doing an entire book based on one case is going to be a tall order. I have to admire some of these true crime writers who have actually written a long form, piece on one specific case, because it's a challenge just covering one story in a story-sized package.
Right. I agree. I agree. 100%.
Yeah, and then just to and the thing, though I mean I could understand how it happens, because I've gone down that rabbit hole so many times. When you start researching a story and you start going in this direction and that direction and finding this out and finding that out, yeah, I mean it really is the proverbial rabbit hole, and you could just keep going on and on and on. And I just actually recently went through that with a story I was writing for book 7, which is out after in early 2023, which will probably I'll come on and talk about that one. But I really got caught in a rabbit hole, and I was like, I'm going to have to stop, or I mean, my story is going to take up half the book, and I'm going to have nothing in it other than me.
See, now if you would have been trained a journalist, it's easier to stop because you get limited to like 500 words.
I know.
You got chucked. So that was my problem too. Is I would overwrite and they would get mad at me. Because I get
I
so
have a word limit. I mean, I tell everybody, I've been trying to say, look, please don't go over like 7,500 words. I mean, because obviously there's only so many stories I can fit in a book, and there's only so many words that could fit in the book. And you know, you have to take into account production costs, especially now. I mean, with you know, costs of paper and printing, everything's just gone way up. And so you know, you have to kind of do it within reason, not to have some book that's going to end up like War and Peace,
right.
and you know, everyone's going to go broke publishing it.
And then photos. I mean, if you're going to run photos, that's going to figure into your cost and all that too.
I don't actually do that. And I've had people ask me, oh, well, why don't you have photos or there's send me photos? And I'm like, you know, that's not really what I want to do. I mean, I've seen that stuff with the photos. It's just not my thing. And I didn't want to put any kind of graphics in the story. I just wanted the text to be there. And you know, if you're interested enough in this story, you could go online and you can find photos of a case. But I just felt like it was too graphic novel-y for me,
I got
if
you.
that makes sense.
No, that makes sense. What types of stories tug at your heartstrings the most?
Oh God. Well, you know, the story actually for my Unsolved Crimes and Mysteries, I kind of got really sucked into that. It's about a Hollywood actor who dies in rather mysterious circumstances. And as I was researching his life, I felt like I was feeling such a connection to him. Like I was just learning about some of the things in his life, the tragedies in his life. He ended up, he had a really bad alcohol problem, and it just got worse and worse over the years. And he had his wife commit suicide, and that kind of, you know, after that, it was like he was never quite the same. And I felt such empathy for him, and sadness that things ended up the way they did. And a career was stopped when it could have gone on for many more years, you know.
Right.
So that was a sad one to write.
Absolutely. How long does it take you to put one of these together?
The whole book.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, well, you know, when I'm on it, I'm on it. You know, I mean, it's a time consuming process, but then I've got my own deadline to deal with, so it's like I got to get my stuff done. You know, so I try to get out the calls for submission as early as possible, and encourage people to submit work as early as possible, because I do pick stories as I go along. I'm not going to wait till like everyone sends in a story and then I'm going to have to, you know, wade through all these stories. And often I'll know when a story comes in if I'm, you know, I'm pretty sold on it. So, you know, I get that out first, and then stories. A lot of my writers will get, you know, my regulars, they get really excited about something when I have my, you know, a new book, a new theme, and they'll like jump on it, like really jump on it straight away, and concentrate and focus on getting it over to me, because they also want to be in the book. But so you know, we get all this stuff, I start getting in the material. I always plan to get ahead. This is the funny part. Not, it just seems like I'm still always bogged down. Like for instance, I'll say, okay, when I know I like a story and I give my acceptance and I send out the contributor agreement, everybody signs it. I think, okay, I'm going to get ahead, I'm going to start editing early, I'm not going to let it slide. But it just seems no matter what I do, I'm still overburdened with all the work that has to go into the book, and it's like I get it delivered right at the wire, you know.
You write so. How many books a year do you write?
Well, I've been doing this series now pretty much full time since I started it. So it's been about 2 books a year that have been coming out, but I'll also work several books ahead. As I mentioned, I just delivered book 7 in the beginning of July. So I mean, I'll be in the midst of promoting this book, and then I'll probably start getting the copy edits in to go over, and then then it'll be the proofing and any other stuff. And then it's like you need to start promoting before a book comes out,
Mm-hmm.
because, you know, reviewers and other people want to have a book before it's out. You know, they want time. So
Absolutely. Yeah.
It's really an intense period. It really, it's
It's
intense.
fun. It's so interesting because I see like you go on your website and there's just book after book after book after book over there.
I know it's been pretty crazy.
It's insane, But I'm not saying it's insane for you. It's very impressive, is what it is, to see how many books.
Well, I got it, and I want to keep the standard up. I don't want to slack off on anything. I want each book to be a good quality book. People are paying their hard-earned money for a book, and I think they have the right to expect something, of substance and quality. And I hope that, I've achieved that. From the feedback I get, it seems like I have. um, you know, I'm the same. If I want to buy a book, I expect something for it. I want something that's going to stimulate me or entertain me or whatever my motivation is in reading the book, thrill me.
Hmm. Yeah. Speaking of feedback, do you ever get feedback from the families of the people that are mentioned in these books at all?
From who?
From the families or from the criminal themselves?
Not yet.
Okay.
No, I haven't. I suppose that's good in a way. But no, I've not had anybody reach out to me. Uh, yeah, I'm just not yet. So, I mean, this is book 6 will be out. And like I said, on I think it's September 13th. So I don't know if anyone's going to reach out to me on this. Maybe someone will be solving one of the crimes. Who knows?
You never know, right?
Yeah.
Well, it's kind of like that TV show now, Unsolved Mysteries.
Unsolved. Yeah, 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 yeah. Maybe I'll have my own next.
So, we talked about a couple stories in this book. Which one would you say really shook you up after going through and editing these things? If you had a choice to say, okay, one particular story really, 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 really got to me.
Oh, well, as I mentioned, the first one about the two women murdered in the Shenandoah Park, and the Edmonton one,
Right.
because it's just so, it didn't have to be like that kind of thing.
Hmm.
Let's see. This one, a murder in Beverlywood, was an interesting one that I've worked with this writer before. It's Priscilla Scott Rhodes. She wrote a really good piece for my Well-Mannered book about a gentleman who robbed an armored car to save his relationship. So she wrote this piece. It's about an unsolved murder in Beverlywood, which is a neighborhood in West Los Angeles, which is it's near Beverly Hills. It's not Beverly Hills, but it's near Beverly Hills, and it's an upscale community. And this teenage girl is found murdered, and it's just, again, we go back to that whole thing about women, but this took place in the 60s, in the 1960s. But you have that whole attitude, for instance, by the police and the press that, well, was she a good girl? I mean, they were asking if she was a virgin. I mean, what the hell? Is that crazy? Like, she was murdered in her own home,
Right.
and the question of her virginity was being brought up. I mean, it's just so outrageous. And that's the sort of thing that we just keep seeing again and again and again, as if somehow finding a reason that you could blame the victim, even though the victim was just in her own home minding her own business.
Standard questions.
Yeah.
Things need to change. I understand they have to ask that stuff. I get it, but I don't know. Maybe it should be on a crime by crime basis or something. I probably sound really stupid saying that, but because I mean, obviously this girl she was a good girl, like you say. What happened in her own home and all this, and it's just really humiliating for the family even to have to answer those questions.
Well, exactly. And I mean, there's another story in the book that has, again, this whole thing about a woman who's sort of like, well, this one is by Dean Job, who's a really well-known true crime writer. And it's called, hang on, I'm trying to find the name of it here. Oh, yeah. The Curious Case of the Dogs in the Nighttime, France's Valley of Hell Mystery. And this is a historical one, and it's actually about a relative of Sir Richard Branson, and it was sort of this bohemian artist woman from England who moves to France, and again, she's murdered, and it's a strange murder because they're trying to say it's suicide, and there's just like no, that doesn't. None of it made any sense. But again, the whole point was that she was sort of disparaged in the media because of her bohemian lifestyle. She liked to go paint the Romany people. And, there's a stigma against the Roma, and there has been and probably always will be the way things are going. But, just as if trying to find some reason why, a fault, like some reason that she's at fault for her own, demise.
Right.
And yeah, you could go back 100 years and you could go back 100 days, and it's as if nothing's changed.
I love what you do. I do. I've read quite a few of your books. I'm still plowing through them, but I've read quite a few of your books. Because I'm just impressed. You totally, like I said earlier, you overwhelm me with your ability to put these things together as quickly as you do, and like not have same stories running over and over, and new topics you're always coming up with. And like you were saying, you're not an Ann Rule, where you're not going to have a book on one topic. Has there ever been have you ever had the opportunity, and I know this is a crazy opportunity, because I used to have to as a reporter, to actually talk to any of these criminals involved at all? Have you, and something you yourself have written, have you gone out to the jail and talked to somebody?
That's funny you asked that, because even though this is somewhat off topic, well, it's not off topic, but it's off topic for the new book. But the story I told you that I was writing for book 7, the rabbit hole one, it was just taking on so many dimensions that I actually thought I could make it a book. But that one would have required me to literally go sit across from this guy in prison. And he's such a heinous character that I just thought, I'm not sure I'd really want to put myself through that. And probably the guy is so heinous and the crimes are so heinous that no one would want to publish it. There's some things that are so bad, even a publisher probably wouldn't publish it. But personally speaking, as far as actually being face to face with anybody that I've written about that's a criminal, no, I have not. But I have had conversations and interviews with people that were involved in the crime, for instance, from a law enforcement perspective and an investigative perspective. So I've done that. But I mean, one story I wrote, the guy's dead. Actually, a couple of them, the person's dead. So, there was just no way I was going to be able to do that. And sometimes, there was also language barriers with one. So even if he would have been alive, we wouldn't be able to communicate very well. So no, I haven't, but you never know. Could happen.
It's a very surreal feeling. When
I bet.
did it, I'm not going to say how old I am, you guys, but when I did it, the show Oz was very popular on HBO. Remember the show about the prisoners?
No, I don't.
Yeah, there was a show that HBO did about this particular high-end prison. And it did, each prisoner had their own story, and all this was going on. And I remember, the whole door slamming, that with the echo and all that.
Oh God!
So I go to a county jail, and as I'm walking in, I'm thinking about this show, because it's like, well, you can't take this, you can't take a recorder, you got to take a notebook, no sharp objects. And I'm walking down the hall, and there's like an orange line. I can still see the orange line in the hall. Stay on this side on the orange line. And they were standing there. There was a big window, and this was the men's unit. And I'm walking in, and they're all watching. And it was just like in Oz in the show, and I was just like so nervous and paranoid going into this jail to talk to this guy. It's just a surreal feeling, because when you can hear those doors slamming.
Yeah, the finality of it. I'm not saying I wouldn't do it. I think I'd be fine to do it. It's just that it hasn't come up that I really needed to do that. And obviously for something that's a shorter piece, if there's going to be a lot of travel involved and cost involved, it's just not really going to be worth doing. But if it was a book, then I can definitely see that would be needed. especially to get someone else's perspective, specifically the criminal's perspective. Because I mean, everyone has a story to tell. It's, whatever comes out of their mouth, it's up to you if you decide to believe it. But I think the closest I've come with one of the criminals in my book was in the Small Towns book. Christian Cipollini wrote a piece about a drug cartel hitman, El Mano Negra, and he sent him the book. So I've got a photo of this guy who's in the penitentiary holding up the book proudly.
Oh my God, that's funny.
I know. I just thought, oh my God.
Now,
apparently it's getting passed around. Everybody's reading the book.
That's hilarious.
I know.
Now,
no, I'm not getting any strange fan mail from the pen, so I don't know.
When you sit down to write a story yourself, what do you do for your research? Do you end up going to the courts to read through the court testimony, or how do you do that?
I do whatever I can possibly do, because as I said, it's that rabbit hole again. And for instance, like I'll start with newspapers, and then I'll end up with maybe 40 different sources that are newspapers. And then they'll, because again, it's that whole cross-checking your facts too, because sometimes there's discrepancies in the reporting.
Sure.
Which there shouldn't be, but there is. And we know about deadlines, and that is what happens. Sometimes you just have to hurry up and hope for the best. But so, yeah, I mean, whatever I can possibly ferret out, looking into records, if there's somebody that I can actually contact about something, that sort of thing. So, it's different with each story, really.
Okay, cool. Yeah, because I know, like, even with, like you say, various newspapers, because different reporters have their own take on it, and that's
yeah.
Sometimes piece something together from other stories, from like 3 or 4 different stories, and then get
yes.
I'll
see things regurgitated from one thing to the next thing to the next thing, and I don't want to necessarily like parrot somebody's so-called opinion or perspective on it. I try to give it tell the story and let the reader sort of determine what they think about it. But yeah, I mean, you just basically just try to ferret out information wherever you can ferret out. I mean, once I even went and drove around an area where there was a mass shooting, because I sort of wanted to see what it was like in this neighborhood, because it was just this lovely residential neighborhood in a very wooded area, lots of space between the homes, kind of place I'd be happy to live. But I kind of wanted to just feel what it was like there, and just really kind of see how it was, and imagine this guy going from home to home and just open firing on his neighbors. Yeah.
Wow. Oh, wow. So in a nutshell, with your new book, tell people what's in it, what they have to look forward to.
Well, I'm really pleased with it. When you ask a band and say, what's your favorite album? It's like the album that they've just put out. So I have to kind of say that as well, because it's just like, this is the one that's the most recent, the one I'm the most excited about. But we've got stories from the United States, Canada, Britain, gosh, where else do we have? Australia, blah blah blah. It's like just Italy. So we're all over the place. Austria, we've got a story from Austria about a guy who's still missing, and who knows, he might still be alive, but it was one of those situations where he was thought to be a murderer, and yet there's a lot of stuff going on in the case that sounds like he didn't do anything, but he was sort of set up, and everyone had their own motivation to kind of see him fry. So he escaped. He managed to escape. So like I said, we're going back from some historical pieces all the way up to pretty recently. We've got a mob story from one of another contributor I've had, David Breakspear, and he just loves mob stuff. So this is the second time he's done a mob kind of story in the book. And Yeah, we've got Wales, a story about a little girl who's found murdered in Wales. It's a historical piece, and it's one of those frustrating ones as well because it's so long ago, and yet the records, they're not unsealing records, even though it's like you kind of wonder like, okay, what's the point already? Everyone's probably almost going to be dead soon, and they're still not. They're saying, oh, it's active. Things like that. You just say things that are so frustrating, and I think we just see that a lot with unsolved crimes. The frustrating elements, and you kind of wonder, like, does anyone even give a damn to solve this crime?
Right, 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 right. Now tell me about the book that you currently have out now.
Uh, the partners in crime.
Yes, ma'am.
Well, that came out in January, so I think we chatted about that one, and it's just again, it's an interesting study and how two people get together and they create havoc. You know, it's just there's people who are being led by the nose by their partner, and others who are just like mutual instigators of crimes. And then there's some pretty hardcore stuff in there as far as the types of crimes, and uh, it's kind of fascinating to see the dynamic and the relationships in these with these couples, and really what drives them. As I know, we've in these types of partnerships, there's always a sexual element, or there is often a sexual element, I should say, and there is definitely a sexual element in a number of these crimes.
Absolutely. Now, what possesses someone like you to get into writing these types of books?
Uh, well, I don't know. Someone like me. What is this? Someone like me?
Well, you seem like a very bubbly person.
Oh, well, you don't, you're not seeing that. I got this guy in the back. He's chained up. No, I'm just kidding. Okay. I'm bubbly.
Book.
Oh, damn. I have to wipe the floor off. It's got so much blood on it. Well, no, actually, I work in a lot of different areas, and I like to kind of not do the same thing all the time. And I've done a lot of fiction. I have done some nonfiction, and as we discussed when I was on before that, I did do my undergrad studies in journalism. So in a way, I was putting my journalism hat back on to do true crime, and even though I hadn't done it, not you could say I was like a newbie to the area, to the neighborhood. I wanted to do it as best as I can, and I wanted to do it right and something that I could feel proud of. And so when I get my teeth into something, I give it everything that I have. And so now it's true crime. Tomorrow, I'm not sure. I've just started back on my poor neglected crime novel. So who knows? Maybe in another year or two, you'll be chatting to me about that one. I hope I can get it finished.
Maybe we will be. Maybe. So are you going to do a book tour or anything with this, or are you just going to sit tight? Or
Well, actually, thank you for asking me that, because I made a note to myself. I'm not doing any public appearances in person because I'm sorry, I'm not putting myself at risk. If other people want to do it, power to them, but I'm not. But I'm doing a virtual event with two of my contributors, and we're doing it for Joseph Beth Booksellers. They're out of Cincinnati, and they also, I think, they have a store in Lexington, Kentucky as well. So we're going to be doing a panel kind of discussion, and that's going to be on Thursday, September 15th at 7 p.m. Eastern. And my website, if you go to events, you'll see the information there. And it's going to be on Zoom. So in order to attend, you have to quote register, and then you'll get your own Zoom link. But that's open to everyone, and I think that should be really an interesting event. And it'll be Lindsay Danis and Janelle Como, who I mentioned from the book. And so that's one event that we'll be doing. And I really hope that the video will be available after that, so that people who couldn't attend will be able to watch.
well, who knows? Maybe you can start doing more too. I mean, COVID changed all that to where it's okay to do these things online now.
I'm happy with it because I wasn't. How am I going to go to Cincinnati? I mean, it's like I'm not going to. It's cost a fortune to go to Cincinnati to do an event. So now I can do an event in Cincinnati, and I don't have to be there. And we've got Janelle's in Nova Scotia, and Lindsay's in New York. So it's like here we are, the three of us together, and all these people from who knows where they're tuning in. And I mean, I think virtual events are fantastic. I think it's one of the best things that's come out of the whole COVID thing is the impetus on having all these virtual events for books. I mean, you're really casting a wide net. You're really getting you can, like I said, anyone, somebody could be sitting in Tahiti on the beach and tuning in, you know.
I think it's really cool. Even with this show, I've interviewed people in Australia, over in Scotland, England, I mean, everywhere. Like, in fact, a guy in not Hungary, but Austria. I interviewed a gentleman in Austria.
It's funny you mentioned that. I did a book event in Vienna some years ago. Back in the day, yeah.
Back in the day. So
back in the day, an in-person event. People were actually sitting there in the bookstore.
So here's my question. I don't know if I hit you with this question last time. You're standing on the Strip in Vegas. You got other true crime writers there. On the bright side, Rule's not there, so we don't have to deal with her, right? The big lady's not there no more. But you've got other true crime writers out there, and you want to get people to read your books. What do you tell them?
Read this book or else.
Read this book or else. Pull them on.
I don't know.
You ain't gonna do that, Dora.
I should put on like a sort of a Godfather Brando voice when I do that. Read this book or else.
Read this book and you'll find a horse in bed.
Kiss the ring.
Kiss the ring. That's funny. That's really funny. How can people find you?
Well, I have my website, MitziSeretto.com, and that's MITZI or a Z if you want to be non-American, SZERETO.com. And I've got all my books there. I've got interviews up there, videos, like my Facebook Live events are on there. Upcoming events like the Joseph Beth one is listed there. Handy links to booksellers that you could just click on and order a book. I try to make it as easy as possible. And of course, I'm on Twitter. I have a Facebook page. I'm on Instagram, and I'm now on TikTok. I've gone to the dark side, and I'm on TikTok. Yeah.
Okay, I'm going to get your opinion on this because I'm an older person. I'm just getting my TikTok rolling.
No, your TikTok's busy, man. Every time I go and turn on the thing, it's all you.
When you talk about a rabbit hole,
yeah,
TikTok is a rabbit hole. You could be there for hours every day, drinking your coffee and checking out all the stuff. TikTok's horrible. It's great.
Oh, I know, but every time you turn it on and it defaults to stuff, and I'm like, what is this crap? I don't want to see this. It's like, what the hell? I don't know. I think there's a lot of people who have a lot of spare time.
Yes.
Like too much of it.
These people are so creative. That's what gets me. I have to sit there and beat my head against the wall to come up with a comedy skit, and these people are just cranking them out left and right. I don't know, man.
Well, I don't know. I don't know what to say. I mean, I've been like trying to with my TikTok, I've been sort of editing some of my Facebook Live videos and just sort of getting like 2 or 3 minute bite from it just as a teaser and uploading those because I mean they're like 45 minutes long. So I'm not gonna put that on TikTok. But yeah, it's just it's crazy. It's crazy. And then it's like you'll have people tell you, hey, did you hear about this new place to go and have a profile and do stuff? And I'm like, oh God, leave me alone already. I just can't do anymore. I'm ODing.
TikTok added an hour to my evenings. You know what I mean? And just to take a video like this and cut it down to 1 or 3 minutes.
I know. It's terrible. I know. And I know that's what you've been doing. So you understand it when I say that's what I've been doing with the old Facebook Live events, the one-on-ones with some of my contributors, the same thing. And it's just like, okay. Then you wonder, does anyone actually see this stuff? Because it's like all they're doing stuff is like watching something of a car crash. Like, that video's got like 1 million views or something like someone stepped in a mud puddle. I don't get it. Am I missing something?
I'm going to be going to Disneyland in February, so I'm going to do a live California Haunts Radio from Disneyland. I'm going to go live the whole day, and I've been talking to some of the creators that already do that over there, and one in particular said, "Well, with TikTok, the key is you have to keep plugging away." He said, "You may have 30, 40 videos up there, don't get discouraged. Look at the numbers. If you have 100, if you have 25 people or 200 people looking at your videos, take those numbers and add them all up into the number of videos that you put out, and that's how many people have seen your videos.
It's, there's a limit to how much you could do. Like, I mean, as an author, I am spending far too much time on a lot of things behind the scenes and get, to get the books out there and promote the books. And it's just, it's almost to the point of ridiculous, which is why I can't finish a novel. And all these things like TikTok, they're such time suckers, I mean, just to do a post or, and then say, oh, did I tweet enough today? And did I Instagram enough this week? And it's just like, it just doesn't end. It's more than a full-time job.
And then God forbid when you're over at TikTok, you start looking at videos because then it's game over. Boom, 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 boom. And the next thing you know, it's 3 hours later. Yikes.
Yeah.
Yeah. But it's, so I'm getting into a pace with it now. Finally, I'm getting into a pace. So hopefully I can get things going. Like, I know I have to spend an hour after each show, take this show, upload it to my RSS feed for the podcast version, and then take the video from this show, chop it up, for something that's usable on TikTok, knock that out. Then I take a dinner break. Then then I'm back in here by 10 looking for guests. And I'm doing all that. And then during the day, it's, the routine of get everything teased out on Facebook, or at the end of the week, once I get my guests lined up for that week, get things teased out on Facebook, get things teased out on Meetup, but and then that goes in the day routine where I get up in the morning, get the stuff teased out on Facebook. See, I get confused even anymore with it. And then in the afternoon,
it doesn't end.
Then it goes to Twitter, then it goes to Instagram, then it, So yeah.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. And now the fun then on TikTok, you could share over to Instagram. So like I'm doing that too to sort of get double mileage out of stuff.
Yeah, I've been doing these shortened videos that I'm doing over on TikTok, and I'm keeping an extra copy on the side to put them up on Instagram now. So I've been moving stuff around.
But then you do all your hashtags on Instagram, and then you got to be careful because if you do too many hashtags, then somehow it never gets posted. Have you noticed that? And so it's like you got to post the damn thing, then you got to go back in there and edit it with the rest of the stuff that you wanted to put. So it's like it's so time consuming, and nothing ever goes right. Things disappear in the ether.
There's a bunch of young people laughing at us right now. You know that.
Oh, well, I don't know. Maybe
they're laughing at us. They are, because young kids are like boom, 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 boom. We sit here and we're like, oh, what is that hashtag?
Yeah, but they don't have as many hashtags as we do.
I just keep hashtagging until I run out of letters. That's all.
This is what comes with life experience. More hashtags.
I'm glad to hear there's somebody else like me out there right now. God, when I first started adding the TikToks, I was overwhelmed big time. At least now I'm able to pace it a little better. It is always fun to have you on, and I thank you for coming on today. I really do.
Thanks so much. I'll see you again.
I definitely want to get you back on because you're fun to have on. But
thank you.
Before we go, I want to make sure people know that the new book will be coming out. When's that coming out?
September 13th, 2022. Okay.
And where can people get it?
Anywhere they please.
Okay. Works for me. So that is Unsolved Crimes and Mysteries. And I'll be looking for that one. The best new true crime stories. Unsolved Crime and Mysteries by Mitzi. My mouth doesn't want to work either today. Mitzi
Szereto.
Szereto, that's it. My Hungarian friend. So yeah, shows you where I'm at today. So remember to pick that up in September. And I will show the current book you have out, plus your website on here so people know where to contact you as we close out tonight. But thank you so much for coming on.
Thanks a lot. I'll see you again.
Have you on again, and we'll see you again. Okay?
Okay.
All right. Have a good evening, Mitzi.
You too.
Bye-bye. All right. That was fun. She's always fun to have on, and I love her books. I love true crime. I mean, look at what happened Sunday. Sunday, I'm going to be reading, Rebecca F. Pittman's book on Lizzie Borden. We're still involved with that. But, I love reading true crime. Now, Monday, we're going to have Rebecca's going to be on talking about the ghosts of Versailles. So we're going to get a little bit of history there. All right. So that'll be Monday. So tomorrow I'm off. Sunday I'll be here at 6 o'clock. We're going to be reading at 6:30. We're going to be reading from Rebecca F. Pittman's History and Haunting of Lizzie Borden again. Remember, right now Lizzie's in trial, so we're still going through the trial. And then Monday, Rebecca will be with us for Ghost of Versailles. But I want to thank everybody for coming. I want to thank everyone for the donations that we've been getting. I really appreciate it. It makes my heart feel good. Thank you so much. If you've been watching from Facebook, please be sure to hit that follow button. If you've been watching from Twitch, please be sure to hit that follow button. And if you're watching from TikTok, same thing, follow button. If you're watching from YouTube, please be sure to subscribe. There's a little ghost. It's Friday. There's a little ghost in the bottom right-hand corner with a Sherlock Holmes hat on and a magnifying glass. That is our mascot, and that will get you to subscribe. We've got over 350 videos over there, and as you can see, we don't always do paranormal topics. We cover all kinds of topics, just like this. So I think you'll find something you'll like. There's a little bit of something for everybody. But please do that. If you like the show, share it with 5 people. If you hated the show, share it with 5 of your enemies. That way you get even with them. We're equal opportunity here. But again, I want to thank everybody for coming. I really appreciate you. And I will see you all Sunday at 6:30. In the meantime, I'm going to run Mitzi's website and her other books so you can see where to get that, okay? Here we go. The website is Mitzi, SZERETO.com. And that's Mitzi with 2 eyes. And the best new true crime stories, Partners in Crime. And of course, you can get that at Amazon along with the rest of her books. You can also see her books at her website as well. Okay, guys, I will see you Sunday. My weekend starts today, too, so see ya. Have a good night.